Well, I have a microphone, and you don't.
So you will listen to every damn word I have to say!
Welcome to the You, Me, and the Scene podcast, brought to you by Revival Recordings.
Hello, and welcome back to the You, Me, and the Scene podcast, brought to you by Revival Recordings. We are on episode 9. That's so far.
Wow.
We've done so many. So it doesn't seem like we've done that many, but wow. And we are
Good
down
for us,
Haley
guys.
this week. Yeah, I know. We're consistent on something.
Mostly.
At least in our lives. At least, we're down Haley this week, but we're going to be joined later in the episode by our VP of A&R at Revival, Kevin, and jump into
Goose.
yes, so you might hear us call him Goose, but jump into, the A&R process, the do's and don'ts that bands should be, aware of when they're talking to A&R reps and things like that. So hopefully some bands out there will listen and get some good info, and will be prepared for any future meetings they have. But first, not too many updates in the scene itself. Bring Me the Horizon.
We're recording these closer. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say we're recording this closer together than we usually do. So it's been
Yeah.
Well, the summer gets a little crazy for all of us, to be fair, so.
Yes, Thrill House is going to be on tour with Alisana. If you haven't gotten your tickets, go get them. Go meet her at the merch table. And,
tip her all the time. Make sure you wish her a happy birthday endlessly, no matter what month it is. Just let her know.
Throughout the entire tour.
You want to talk to you and just be like, happy birthday, Amanda.
Oh, man. I don't know if I'm ready for that.
It's the birthday season. Even though your birthday's not even until the fall, but...
Yeah, my birthday is...
It's
fine. Whatever, it's fine.
You know what? If it means like free treats, I'm up for that. Maybe you'll get some free cupcakes or like cookies or like, I don't know.
Or money.
Definitely money. Tips are the best.
I want to make you a tip jar.
People being nice to me. I do have a Luann tip jar. Anyway, with this, we don't have to keep... We're already... way off of what we were going to talk about.
We don't have mom with us, so this is going to happen.
We don't have Mama Haley here to keep us on track this week. So if we're a little more chaotic than usual, that's why. So one of the things recently, in between just the week that we recorded the last one, is Bring Me the Horizon dropped their new song, Lost. I love it. The internet is not all on the same page. Some people are. Some people are really into it. Some people
haven't listened to it.
I haven't listened to it. That's me. I am some people.
I heard it and I was like, do I like this? And then part of me was like, this sounds like a lot like an MGK song. Like if you just took it out of context, I would be like, this sounds like my arch nemesis MGK. But then the more I listened to it, the more I was like, wait, these lyrics are really relatable.
Yeah.
And it kind of slaps after a while. And then it has that breakdown towards the end that I really like. So it grew on me. It just took a few times.
It very much aligned with our last week's episode about mental health.
Yeah.
Because it's a very mental health song. And the music video was wild. Did you watch that at all?
I did not.
All right, go back and watch that later. It was a crazy music video.
I saw pieces of it, and I was just like, maybe we hold off on this one. Maybe we just wait a few weeks.
Yeah, I feel you. But I enjoyed it. I think a lot of people's take on it that didn't like it is, Bring Me the Horizon has been moving in a not as hardcore direction for years now, so it's not surprising that that's where they are. And like Ollie Sykes constantly talks about how he wants to move in different directions and explore different things. And like I mentioned to you guys before we started, like he has his vocal cord issues that he's had over the years, so he's always talked about like not screaming constantly, because I mean it takes a lot. And they tour a lot to be like doing that consistently.
Oh, for sure.
It's not, you know, just recording it. So if they're still doing those songs, they tour so much, it does have its effects on your.
I just like, I've seen them in their deathcore-ish, I guess we can call it that. I don't know. I'm bad with genres. That being said, I've seen them in their really hardcore era. I've seen them in their kind of like lighter doom era, and then I've seen them now, so I'm just kind of like, they're still bringing me the horizon. They're just like different, and I think they're allowed to do that. I mean, is it vastly different from like I used to make out with Medusa? Absolutely. Like,
I just don't understand. We've talked about this in some other episode. Like the old hardcore music, it still exists. It's still there, and I'm sure maybe one day Ollie Sykes is going to wake up one day and be like, I'm going to do a throwback record, and everyone's going to freak the fuck out. And like, why are you being such a baby about this band not making screamy music?
I will quote myself from that episode. Bands are allowed to change and evolve.
I think it was...
Oh, did your band change their sound?
Because I mentioned, I said in passing on Twitter, I was like, oh my God, is this song pop punk? And it wasn't meant to be like, it wasn't
negative.
It wasn't a negative thing. I was just like surprised. Like I was like, wow, like this is very different, but like not in a necessarily bad way. Again, it took a second for me to like it, but you know, I think it sounds good now.
Yeah, no, I immediately liked it. It's like I play it on repeat for like the past.
I think it is on my most
4 days straight.
Yeah, everything I said being said, I also haven't really paid attention to anything that Bring Me the Horizon's done since the one that was after Sempiternal, and that's because they just weren't one of the bands that I stuck with. It wasn't for any like, oh, they changed their sound reason. I'm not one of those people. Most of the time. It depends.
Speaking of changing sound, did anyone else listen to the new Millennium record? I'm just going to assume not, but also.
We're having an Millennium jar for E now. Like that.
Okay, yeah. No, okay.
The one that has all the crossovers, though?
Yeah, so it has Motionless in White in it now, which I was like, whoa. He also has a very interesting song called Eyes Wide Shut with Avril Lavigne and Travis Barker. Oh. And again, we've talked about this in another episode. I would be very interested to know if this song is about Mod Sun.
Oh, I'll have to go listen.
Mod Sun, what was the name of his... Sorry, I don't know. It's nothing. No. It's nothing negative. What was the name of the band that he used to drum for before he was Mod Sun? He was in a hardcore band or a metalcore band.
The same one that Post was in.
I did not know who.
That would be nuts, but no. Wait, no. This is a thing because hold on, pause.
Look it up.
I
did not know who Mod Sun was until he was dating like Bella Thorne and Tana at the same time.
No. To be fair, at first that was when Mod Sun came into my consciousness. That's how I figured out who he was too. But he used to be in this band called 4 Letter Lie. My ex used to bring this up every time Mod Sun came up because, of course, I was watching all the trash YouTuber stuff. Like, there's this dude Mod Sun, and he's like, "Oh, that's the dude from 4 Letter Lie. He used to make hardcore music." So I've just been watching all of Mod Sun's, MGK type stuff come out, and people know him from that. And in the back of my mind, thinking like, it would be so sick if he just whipped out a hardcore project. Now that he's like mainstream known, Same for Post Malone.
Even with Post Malone,
it's
like
that'd be cool.
I would love for Post Malone to come out with a hardcore record.
I would love for him to literally do any genre of music. Like, he could come out with like a folk album, and I would be like, yes, this is
I could
very
see it.
good.
That seems plausible.
He said that he would want to do country.
He has done country. He's shown up at random country shows and done that.
My toxic trait over the past 5 years has definitely been, I think, if someone, back when Twitter verification meant something, I thought that if a verified Twitter account tweeted at Post Malone that he's guest listed to an Emptiness anniversary show, that he would show up. But
okay, wait, pause. Now we need like a Twitter movement. We need a social media movement.
Two things with that: the Emptiness tours are done. Not that they're done for good, but like that leg of the tour is done. And also, Twitter is a shithole. So
But
yeah, you right.
maybe, yeah.
This is something we could talk about. My feed blew up because an Alisana t-shirt was featured in the Blackberry movie.
Yep, I saw.
I haven't.
that on Twitter.
What?
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie. I just saw the screenshot that people have been posting. There's a movie about BlackBerry, first of all, like the phone company, and there's a character in the movie wearing an old school Alisana t-shirt, and it's like so niche that I want to know who in that cast or on that crew was like, this is the shirt.
Yeah, put that on him.
And
like, wear
so the movie is featuring the dude from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and the Always Sunny podcast was talking about this movie, and the screenshot was on the podcast. And now in my another toxic trait is, I think if we tweet at Glenn from Always Sunny to come to an Alisana show, he would.
All right, so guys,
I'm delusional. I am delusional. I want to know who in that cast, on that crew, said that this is the peak 2010 shirt that this character needs to wear. Yes. Casey, Dennis's wife, posted it, and I responded, and I said, I feel so seen because I too had a BlackBerry and wore Alisana t-shirts in 2010. I said it in our group chat too because I'm hilarious, and more people needed to hear the joke.
I needed people to know I'm funny, okay? but yeah, that was cool. Which, like, it is such a niche thing that I'm like,
and it's so niche because Sean and Nick are like Philly people and really into Philly sports, and it would just be so full circle if someone Always Sunny affiliated was an Alisana fan.
So yeah, that was really cool. And then the other thing we wanted to talk about was mention, by the time this podcast comes out, the first Friday night on White that we're going to be at, Revival has a booth, will already have happened, but we have another one on
June 9th.
If you are in the Wake Forest area, downtown Wake Forest, on
June 9th.
Down to
it's like
come see
us. I don't know if anybody who lives in Raleigh would be listening to this, but it's a lot like the First Fridays event, like a block party kind of thing where businesses have booths and there's probably food trucks and sometimes music. We're gonna have stuff we're giving away.
Music. It says family festivities.
We're gonna have stuff we're gonna give away.
There's stuff to give away.
Listening stations and special playlists and stickers and stuff.
So if you're in the area on June 8th, you should definitely go check that out and say hi. I think Nick is gonna be at that.
I'm gonna be at the
Amanda.
one that
maybe me
would have already happened by the time this posted. I think the next one might be too close to tour for me to go, but it depends. We'll see.
Gotcha. Well, some Revival people will be there, so go say hi.
Some Revival people will be there.
Yeah. So those are not a lot of updates, but the updates we have going on, and we are gonna pause, and we'll be back with Goose. Welcome back, and we are joined with Kevin, who is our VP of A&R at Revival, and you might hear us call him Goose instead, because that's what we sometimes call him. So,
because his name is Ragusa, so Goose.
Yeah. Yes. Goose. Good job, because I've had to explain that to some people, and I'm like, now it's not interesting if I have to explain it to you.
I did have that thought, actually. I was like, why is his name Goose? But that makes sense now.
Now you've got it. There you go.
Yeah, we're going to jump into just like A&R process and the do's and don'ts and, what bands should look out for. I mean, all of us on the team contribute to A&R in some way or another, but most of it lands on Goose and Amanda. So, for the most
Really?
part.
Does it? I mean, mostly Goose. I wouldn't say
Goose, but I feel like you
I'm trying.
are like second. Well, I mean, Sean does, obviously.
Sean
does
is
Sean's stuff,
the dad.
But I think you're kind of like a little second in command, Amanda.
Cool. That's neat. I didn't know
mean,
that.
Amanda is
you do
emerging.
the distribution, yeah. Distribution stuff and work on that side of it.
So let's talk about how a band kind of goes through the ecosystem. Because we have a whole. Should we talk about should we get specific about it first?
Yeah,
we can.
First, let the band
we can always cut it out.
Yeah. People are going to know what that is and what everything is. So to explain it is going to make it make sense.
Well, first of all, A&R stands for artist and repertoire.
Right. Which is a ridiculous thing, I feel like.
It's not what you think it would be. I remember we used to do, what's it called? Team retreats. And the first question Sean always asks is, what does A&R stand for? And half the people are not correct.
Wait, that's an Envy on the Coast song. Wow. All of that just made sense to me very quickly.
We're connecting the dots for you tonight. This is good.
Thank you.
But we usually meet once or twice a month to talk about A&R bands. And that starts with everyone submitting bands that they find, however they go through their own process. It's different for all of us, I'm sure. Submit it through a form that's organized to a spreadsheet, gets made into playlists on various platforms for all of us to evaluate and listen to. And then we all have the option to champion a band if there's a band on that list that we really feel passionate about and really would like to work with. We say something, and then that narrows down the playlist, and then we discuss those champion bands at the meeting. So it's a month-long process most of the time. So if you get reached out to, it's a multi-step process to get to that point before the communication even starts.
Yeah. And especially on Revival's end, it means someone on the team really liked you.
Really, really liked you.
Yeah.
Enough to say hey, I want my name. At least personally, I interpret it as I get kind of picky about bands that I champion, because I think of it as, if I wouldn't want my name associated with this group of people, then I'm not gonna champion them. And I'm sure I could speak for everyone where a lot of factors go into that. And we probably it's kind of obviously not just the music. There's so much else to look at. So
yeah. And I think the other part of it is, yes, it's someone on the team that has decided that, they are really in love with you. And typically there's some conversation with a broader team around that. And there's usually some consensus around other people kind of getting on board, once someone kind of pitches it and even just talks about it or what it was that impacted them. So it starts at one, and then it really kind of starts to grow. And I mean, the thing I think I'm always chasing is, what's the thing? Obviously it's great, but it gets me excited because that's what makes this fun. But I'm always chasing the thing that makes everyone else get really excited and feel like, wow, this would be really fun to work on this. This doesn't feel like work. This feels like something where we could really do something. We could really move somebody along. And that's the high that I chase. I feel like all the time.
And we all
myself, but everyone else.
Right. It always kind of reminds me of the meetings remind me of Tribal Council on Survivor, because we have these champion bands, and the people who champion these bands, that will be this person pitched them and this person is championing them. So tell us why. And they kind of plead their case, and everyone is this is what it's not voting literally, but it's very close to voting. And
everyone has an opinion, and everyone's going to voice that opinion.
And all of us look into different aspects,
right. I was going to say, all of our roles are different. So
yeah. So as a social media manager, I go through I listen to the playlist, and then the immediate next thing I do is check all those people's socials, because that's I'm if you're not active, if you haven't posted in a while, like to see how big your following is, like all those things. So like I check box those things. Amanda kind of does like a deeper dive usually, make sure there's no suspect activity going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just spend just a lot of time on the internet, so I'm just very aware of like, hey, if this person is being racist or, you know, saying something really bad, and we probably shouldn't associate with this, but which it doesn't really have anything to do with my role. I kind of also do the social media dive, in the sense that like most of the stuff that I do for Revival that isn't A&R is content related. So like, does this band seem like they would be easy to get content from when I need it? Would they need help with editing things? All these, any information that I could find in that regard, I'm gonna find it. That's my job.
And as you're talking, even as you guys are talking about the process of how we find bands, I'm like thinking about, you know, when you present a band that you find and you're really excited about, it's a pretty, like, you kind of are going out on a limb because you have no idea what the other people are going to say. And like, I think our group is pretty honest in a good way.
We've also known each other for so long. So like, if a band is being discussed that one of us really is like, what the fuck is this? They're going to say, what the fuck is this? You know, it's not like we're sitting in suits around a table or anything. We're like talking to our friends about music, which is the coolest thing in the world to think about. Like, we're paid to sit with our friends and talk about music. And I will never get over that. But
yeah, it's good. It's like, take something that you're really passionate about and that, you know, you may feel a certain level of affinity to, and then it kind of becomes your responsibility to try to help these people make their dreams come true. And that's a lot of pressure. And I feel that definitely all the time. Any band that I'm working on, I feel the weight of that. But I do think it is interesting, like when people bring stuff, because there's certain, like, I know when some people bring some certain bands, I'm like, well, Courtney's not going to be into this. Like, that's
we all have very different tastes too.
But that's the part that's the most fun too, is I can say, yeah, I know Courtney's, this is not going to be her cup of tea, but I know that she'll look at it still objectively. She'll say that. She'll be like, this isn't for me, but A, B, and C looks pretty good. And so therefore maybe this is, you know, a worthwhile thing. So everyone's still, even if you're like, I don't get this, or this style of music is not for me, people still have a lot of things they can contribute to that conversation. And it's really helpful for me because, again, I mean, like, I say this all the time, and I know Amanda hates it when I say this, but whatever, I'm going to keep saying it. I am 43 years old. And so I am a dad. I do have kids and all this stuff. And so as much as I'm connected, I also am not, because the music that typically we work with, the audience, the target audience for it is younger than I am. That's just a reality of it. And so I get a lot of helpful feedback from the younger members of the team, because you guys are more the target audience for this. And so some things that I may think about or miss, you guys will pick up on it. So that's really, it makes it a very holistic approach to doing A&R, because I never feel like I'm doing it on my own. I never feel like I have to figure out what's going on. Everyone's got a role to play, and there may be some things like, I just don't get it because I just don't get it. But you guys might be like, no, this is it. Like, you need to be paying attention to this. And that's really helpful.
And it's also, it's rapidly starting to be, there's stuff that I see on TikTok. I find a lot of music on TikTok. If you're in a band and I've reached out to you, it's probably because I found you on TikTok. Just because that's where my brain is at most of the time. What was I saying?
How we're younger. Our brains don't work as well. Okay.
You're youngins.
But there's stuff I see on TikTok that even I, at 28, I'm like, I don't get this. Sometimes I'm like, is this person being serious? I can't tell if this person is shit posting or like, but, and then it's like some obscure underground thing that people do like actually care about and actually listen to. And I need to change my perspective a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that happens to me daily. I feel like I'm like, I don't Like I remember when hyperpop was first kind of becoming, I was like, I don't get this at all, but there are millions of kids who totally get it. So it doesn't matter what I think.
I found some that I like. Well, I wouldn't say like. I'm not like a hyperpop fan, but there's some stuff that I'm like, oh, I get why other people like this. It's just not what I'm streaming on my own time, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it has value for sure.
Me and Amanda did joke the other day. We were like trying to figure out how to do something on TikTok, and we were like, "Do we need to get someone even younger than us now? Are we couldn't figure out what's going? The green screen thing."
Hey,
Oh.
no, it's
The
not. It's not
CapCut.
TikTok. It's CapCut. CapCut
Yeah.
is foreign to me. Okay, I'm gonna learn. Just give me a second.
Yes, yeah. So we were like, "Oh crap! Are we getting too old?"
Getting to that point.
Aging is undefeated, okay? And eventually you will get to that point where it'll be hard to stay on top of this stuff, because I feel that all the time. Like the allure of TikTok does not exist for me. It's more a function of the role that I play at the label as opposed to anything that I'm getting out of it personally. It's just not it's not my chosen platform. But in order to be in this world right now, it's a necessity. It's
Yeah,
because that's where stuff's happening. It just is. So I can be like, I don't like this, but it's not going to change.
and
Never
yeah,
gonna
that just
change.
goes back into all of our different roles at, you know, on the A&R team. Socials do matter when we're. It sucks to talk about, because I know we've talked to so many bands that are like, well, I'm just a musician or I'm just a songwriter, but it's just an unavoidable aspect of it. Now, if you're not working to promote yourself, then what are we supposed to do? You know, you don't just magically.
I mean, that's like one of the things when we can go into like when we're looking at do's and don'ts of bands that kind of have that negative like outlook on it, really makes us kind of be like, because I'm there to help, but I try, whenever I approach the bands on our onboarding calls, I'm like, my whole job is dedicated to this. It is a whole job within itself. It takes time, it takes work, but that is what marketing is now. Like, it's the same as if you were walking around your entire town putting up flyers or stuff like that. That's your flyer. Your flyer is a post on Instagram. Like, it's just what it is. So
I understand the negative attitude, because I know
it's a lot.
As someone who like has tried a million different things under the music industry umbrella, you just kind of have to be a jack of all trades at some points in your career. And then it's, you know, not that you can't complain about it. And I know it feels silly sometimes to take out your phone and make a TikTok, but god dang, it would help sometimes.
Yeah, but to be devil's advocate, though, there are some bands, too, that we look at where it's like, this is very not serious. And there is like a line in the sand where it's like, you can joke on social media for sure, but then you get into the point of obscurity where it's like, do people realize that, like,
oh yeah, there's a
joke?
There's a tone for sure and
I feel like I touch base on that with like the onboarding too. Like, I'm like, you don't have to go and like dance on TikTok if that's not your personality. Post like what aligns with you, like what aligns with your band, and what, like, you know what I mean? There's just so many different angles to go about it. I mean, this could be a whole social media could be a whole podcast episode with itself that I could go off on, but like, nobody's saying you have to be like doing these wild things. You just got to be like consistent. Is all.
I think like, this whole topic is a good segue into do's and don'ts, because there are a whole lot, at least for me and my outlook on things, there are a whole lot of don'ts that I have seen in my short time.
Media,
Not even just social media. There's
like,
we'll get into it, but social media is one of them. Yes,
I think one of the things too on the do's and don'ts side is a lot of the things that are do's are really easy. They're not complex. They're not complicated, but they're things that show that you're serious. And when you're talking to a label, or you're talking to a promoter, or you're talking to a booking agent, or, you know, whatever, you're essentially asking someone to invest either money, time, energy into what someone's doing. And so if you're a pretty unserious person, and again, outside of like the shtick of if that's what you do, you're like the joke band or whatever. If you're a pretty unserious person, it's kind of hard for people to part with their time and energy and money to like, pump it all into that type of act, as opposed to the act that is serious and organized and thoughtful and thinking about their next steps and asking good questions and doing all of those things. So I don't think the stuff is terribly complicated. I think it's just doing the basic stuff to show that you're actually serious about making this a career. Because otherwise, like, why do I care? There's a million bands. And Sean says this all the time too. He's like, there's a million bands today. There's going to be 1,000,010 tomorrow. It's like there's more all the time. So do the easy stuff. Make sure you get the easy stuff in line. And then everything else can kind of start building off of that. But it's amazing how many people don't get the easy stuff right.
It's kind of like the other day you were like, Blink-182's whole shtick when they started was like being the not serious band, but do you think they ever walked into a meeting and weren't serious? It's like there's a time and place for it, and putting on the performance of like being on stage or those funny videos is different than like talking business. It's like, and you don't have to be like dead serious in a meeting. We want our personalities to mesh, especially when you're coming onto like a smaller label like this and you're working so closely with a small team. Like, we want to make sure like we like you as people too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a time and place and knowing.
And I don't think you have to be like this super music business savvy band either, but I do think if there are things you don't know, it's important just to be curious about it and to ask questions and ask questions that show that you actually are interested in learning about it. If it's a gap, like I never look at when a band doesn't understand an aspect of the industry or something that we do. I never look at that necessarily as a negative. They just don't know. But if they're asking in a way that they're like, I want to learn more because this will help me understand how to do this, then that's great. That's exactly what you want. You want someone who wants to learn and is going to put the time in.
Yeah, exactly. So you want, so once it gets past the champion round, the outcome of that meeting is we all have action items of like, so-and-so is going to keep an eye on this band, reach out to this band, check this on this band. We'll talk about this band at this time again. And then if there's any communication with the band, then it gets into the whole setting up meetings, seeing if we like them as people, seeing if what the artist wants meshes with what we could provide realistically. There's a lot of like, hyping them up, but also being like, very realistically, this is what we can do for you. It's a very delicate balance that I have absolutely not mastered yet.
They kind of just go through a whole vetting process, really.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to get it all to the point where someone's signing a contract.
I think about that. You just mentioned, like, I don't know the balance yet of like, because there is an element I feel like sometimes of this role that can be salesy, but I very much not reject that, but it's almost like if you're the right type of people for us, I shouldn't have to change who I am as a person to be salesy to kind of like bring you in. And other people may feel differently about it, but I like to think that the relationship that I start with these bands should be consistent. So whatever it starts with, it should be what it's like a year to 2 years later. It shouldn't be like, I brought you in and now like I'm going to be this different person and I just like talked you up and made you feel good. I think it's important to be straightforward with people. And honestly, I think you will lose artists that way because
we have before.
Yeah. I played in bands forever and bands love to be told how great they are. They do. But that is such one aspect of what you do. And I don't think it's necessarily all that helpful to their career to just be like, here's all the amazing things that you do. And I don't think there's anything you should ever change, because that's
not to say we're
untrue.
not sitting these artists down and saying like, this is what you need to, we're not like critiquing them. It's more, hey, this is what we have. This is what we're about. This is what we can do. Is everything gonna like mesh, basically? And a lot of times, are you laughing at my cat?
Green Luann.
Luann.
Bring the toy? Is that what it was?
No, she's just has to be sitting on my lap
at all times.
I thought that's what you were talking about. And she was just like,
He's impression of Luann.
But a lot of it is just a lot of bands, if a call doesn't end in us working together, a lot of times it's just our goals don't match up.
Correct.
And that is a bummer, but it's just, realistic
Business.
And it's fine. I the thing about, I mean, why would you, I would, the one thing I would say is I'm kind of tossing back and forth on this, like, yeah, you want to go to a label because you want some infrastructure, you want a platform, and you want a partner to help you grow in that way. That's why you get involved in this, especially when it's totally an option to stay independent and do things on your own. So we have to be additive to whatever they're doing. And one of the ways I can be additive is in the years I played music, the years I've spent working, doing music business and all of these other things, I can at least help you not make really bad decisions that I've seen other people make. And I can guide you in that way. I'm not interested in like going to the studio with a band and talking to them about how to structure their song, or I think you really should change this transition. If they ask and they want feedback, I'm always happy to give it, but I don't view my role as being like that. I view my role as more trying to help them level up through the platform that is the
exactly
label.
Yeah,
that's more what I'm interested in.
And I think I'm confident in the well-roundedness of our team as well. Because Kevin has done all sides of this. Sean has all the experience he has. Nick is the numbers and business guy. We have a great marketing team. I like us, guys.
I think we're great. Like us too. I think one of the
I think we're pretty great.
Yeah.
It is though. It is honestly, it is a good team, and it's been a very stable team, and it's a team that gets along, and those things matter. They absolutely matter. Working with a team that is at each other's throats or don't see eye to eye on things is bad for the artist. It just is.
And I think,
we do disagree sometimes, but like,
no, of course,
nothing like at each other's throats.
Yeah.
I think that's one of, because like you said, Goose, like artists now especially have the option to stay independent and like be successful that way. But that's kind of one of the benefits of a label, because you have bands out there that kind of have that mindset, like, I can do it on my own. I don't need a label, but like, you have that team to back you, especially like in smaller labels where you're not like lost in a big pond, and like have someone to tell you like, hey, maybe that's not a good idea. I know from experience.
Right.
And there's plenty of bands that like we've brushed with or have at least talked to who went on to go to the giant ocean pond, like way bigger labels, and like that's fair too. If someone offered you some insane contract that you feel confident about, totally, like that's a good outcome for a phone call,
Yeah, I think the other thing is even the bands that are independent and doing it on their own, there's still an element of a team that's around them. At least anyone that's somewhat successful, they probably have a manager, they probably have a booking agent, so there is still like this team that they've built. They just may not have the label component to it, but most bands don't have enough time, energy, and resources to do it on their own, strictly as like 4 people getting together in a room and doing it all. There's always some element of somebody that's helping in some way. Like almost always, there's someone that's a part of that team that is helping them do that, because it's just really hard to do the whole thing.
Speaking
Especially-
of, a good do have a manager. That is very helpful.
Well, hold on. Let me say.
Okay, no.
Have a good manager.
Have a good manager.
Have a good manager, because have a manager that, so again, a manager that works with you should be additive to what you're doing. They should be finding opportunities for you. They should be helping you connect with people. They should be helping you meet other people, do things, set things up for you. There are a lot of managers that exist that are like, I manage this band and I talk to them on the phone. And it's like, okay.
There's been calls that managers have ruined for me that have made me not want to work
Yes.
with a band because their manager was a certain way or said something ridiculous.
Yes.
Or we've had the whole spectrum of great managers and awful managers that we've interacted with. There's been calls where I maybe like wasn't really vibing with the band, but the manager was super cool, and I kind of wanted to hit the manager up and be like, "Hey,
any other bands?"
Yeah. But it's all over the place. Truly, your manager can make or break you.
I've had managers give me like PTSD. So
yeah.
So really, like when you're going and finding people as a band that you want to work with, make sure like you really want to work with them.
Make sure you know how they're talking to other people. Make sure you know what their communication style is. Make sure that they're being honest with the people that they're interacting with on your behalf and not just miscommunicating the whole thing, because we've seen that happen too.
Yeah. We've had those conversations where we'll talk to managers and don't know if that information is being relayed to a band. So
yeah, and I'll one thing I'll say in the defense of managers is if someone is doing it right, it's a hard job, because you are trying to guide somebody in the right direction. Being able to express what that direction is to whoever the partners are, label, booking agent, whatever, and still try to have some semblance of a solid relationship, even though you may have to tell them things that are uncomfortable, that are not
totally
fun topics. And so, but there's a very fine line in there of being just a good person. You can tell someone bad news. You can be upset with someone about something and still be respectful. And that's when I have a problem with it, is when, especially like if it's a band that I've brought onto the label and then I'm hearing that someone from this band's team is being abusive to somebody, I feel incredibly responsible for that, because then I feel like, well, my vetting didn't work and now someone else is paying the price for this. And I also just don't think people like that should be rewarded in any way, shape, or form. They need to change their behavior. We don't need to change ours. As long as we're being respectful and listening and taking things in, then we're doing the right thing. But yeah, I don't have any tolerance for abusive people. There's other ways to do work.
Yeah, and just it's basically just make sure that the people that you're bringing onto your team are people that you want in your corner, basically.
Yes. Good advocates for you. Good communicators, understand what you're trying to do as a band, like what your goals are, help you to set those goals, and then help you actually achieve those goals. But they should be a very active participant in helping you level up your career. And if they're not doing that, then you're giving them a percentage of your earnings for no reason.
And that being said, it's totally acceptable to, at least at our stage of a record label, we have brought on bands that don't have managers. It's not like you have to have a manager. I definitely worded that incorrectly, but
no, I don't think. I think it's helpful if a band has a team. It's somewhat validation, because you're like, okay, other people have bought into the vision of what this band is trying to do.
Yeah,
other people see it. And other people have signed on and want to put their heart and soul into it. And so it tells me something like, okay, there's probably something there. And then as long as we're on the same page, then it makes sense. It's more just like the person who's like, yeah, I'm your manager and I don't really know what I'm doing. And I'm just like in the way. Like, that's not helpful. And everyone needs to get experience. So like, I'm not saying that, but it's very obvious when someone's trying, and it's very obvious when someone's just in the way.
Right. Yeah, and if a band doesn't have a manager, I think it comes down to the band being really good communicators on their own behalf, which is kind of obvious. But another do is to be a good communicator and advocate for yourself as well.
Mm-hmm. And it's something you practice. It's not like, some people are naturally good communicators. Other people, it doesn't come naturally for that. It's something you can practice. I mean, good communication works in so many things. Forget about music industry, any workplace, or with your spouse, with your your boyfriend, girlfriend, what have you. It's essential to a relationship, whether that's a working relationship, an intimate relationship, whatever. It's like the essential building block of how these things work and stay on track. Like, if you don't have it, things go south. It's like undefeated. And so, yeah, like, and that's something you can practice. That's something you can get better at. And I don't think there's ever a time where you should feel, especially like working with us, where there's no such thing as like over communication. If you're telling me something and it's really not all that important, that's okay. I'm not upset about it. You're not, wasting my time or ruining my day. It's just good to know the whole thing.
So, Goose, when bands are at the point that they think, some bands reach out that aren't really at a point that they should be, but reaching out. But when they do, what are some things you specifically look for, like, or that they can prepare themselves for? I'm not really wording this right. It's in my head.
No, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
What are some green flags if a band reaches out to you?
Yeah, like if they are the ones to reach out to us before we like discover them, what should they should they be taking?
Typically, I mean, the number one the
baked flag.
It's both good and
the
bad.
purple.
No, the number one green flag is if I've heard of you before, and even if it's I'm familiar with the name, I've seen it around. That's like a huge green flag, because that means that out of all the stuff that's sort of swimming around, I've seen it, or I've at least remembered it. I think having your approach is really important in terms of, again, because it's your first communication to somebody. So this is your opportunity, sure, to sell yourself, but also to just show that you have an ability. Again, this is going back to communicating. Like, you have an ability to talk about yourself, your band, your music in a way that is that I get. Like that a person can understand. There's obvious things, there's lots of bands that are really good that may not have built much of a fan base for themselves. It's important to be active. It's important to be building a fan base, just like and really it's the old school way. It's a little bit different because you're using digital tools, but still playing out, making connections and doing those things. Because again, that just shows that you're serious. Yeah. There's very little bands that exist out there that have stayed in their basement for their entire lives and never had to come out and been successful. That's just not how this works. When you get to a certain point, people want to see you, and so you have to have that component of your act ready. So I think having a online presence, having some sort of and I hate to use this word because I feel like it's so overused, but like a brand, but have some sort of an identity of what your band is. Understand what you are, what you're good at, and that you are really executing on those strengths. So if you're a band that is 5 super good looking guys, okay, fine. That's great.
Go be pretty.
Go be pretty. Do that. If you are kind of like these gutter punk guys, do that. If you're, I don't know, like whatever that.
If you're all dads, make dad music.
Make
dad rock.
Dad punk.
Dad rock.
We love a good Nickelback.
Exactly. Like just know like know what you are and show that, and even if you don't have it super well defined, show that you've at least thought about it.
Mhm.
And that you are thinking about it and trying to figure out how to best present. I mean, if I say a band name to you that is established or, you know, somewhat popular, you'll be able to come up with terms immediately in your head to describe that band. And so you should be trying to do a similar thing for your own. Like Blink-182 is like the goofy guys with, you know, like whatever. And they have a whole thing that's already lined up for them. So you don't have to be as established as them to have that, but you should find whatever your lane is and whatever that's going to be and be working towards that. And I think the other thing is show that you're a good networker. And that means that you're, you know, for me, it's like, do you comment on other people's stuff? Are you active? Are you going out to shows? Are you just like a part of the community at large? Because that tells me again that this is something you're invested in. You're showing me that you're invested because you're investing your time in that. Because it's not always fun to like go and comment. And I'm not saying I want you to do it just because you don't mean it. Like do it because you mean it and you really want to be a part of it. So those are all like soft things that people can do that again are not terribly difficult. They require some time and attention, but they don't require, I haven't talked about a single thing yet that requires money.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
Nothing I have said requires cash at this point.
I think becoming friends with other bands, like especially in your areas, is so important because it's like touring wise shows, like we said, playing live, because we look at that a lot. Like if you're not out playing shows, then like that's kind of, in our conversations, we'll kind of be like, eh. And then like branding, the one thing I'll mention is if you're naming your band, try not to name it the same as like 12 other bands out there. But
yeah, no, that's super important.
Because I mean, like,
don't be hard to find is a good thing.
Don't be hard to find.
Yeah.
Try and, you know, I mean, like there's so many bands that kind of have, at least if you have like a similar name and having like a different symbol or like color scheme or whatever it is to go with it separates you a little. But like sometimes we're like, okay, well, if we put you on Instagram, 3 other bands are going to pop up before you. Like,
or
that name.
Not even bands, like
or
brands or like mommy blogs or like whatever.
So just think about that.
And I wanted to mention that like it's a social following helps, but if I find a tiny band that I like really give a shit about, I'm going to be that person in the meeting that's like, hey, we need to pay attention to this, or hey, I really love this. Can we do something with them? So it's not all about having like thousands of followers either.
Well, yeah, if they have the pieces or the parts, then you can see how it could come together with some help.
I feel like my go-to in every meeting is like, well, their socials are but we could work on that. Like, we could work on that though. Like, that's something
so often.
Like, you know what I mean? But like, that's something that can be improved. Like, shitty music can't, but I can help you with socials.
No. With socials, I feel like it's really, I mean, I know we talked about this a little bit, but it is a place where bands have really been able to differentiate themselves and separate themselves. It's really fascinating to watch as like almost like an experiment. Like if you have someone in your band, even if your band is like pretty good, you have someone in your band that's really good and really active and goes after this, you will jump over numerous artists who are probably better than you, know, which again is subjective, but like in a better spot, better musically, probably have a higher ceiling, whatever. There's so many bands. There's a graveyard of bands that are super good who just cannot get out of their own way because they want to fight against the way things are going in the music industry. And it's like, I don't make I say this to bands all the time too. I don't make the rules of what, like, I'm not an active social media person. If anyone follows me, I'm the worst follow of all time. You might get a picture of my dog once a year. Like, that's what you're getting. But I don't make the rules. People who are fans make the rules, and they are telling you that they want that inside look into your band and your life and those things. And then let's say you're a pop punk band and you're like, I really want to do this. It's like, well, the bands at the top are all doing it. They're all doing it, and they're
or
all
they
doing
have
it
people
well.
who are doing it
Or
for
they have
them.
people that are doing it.
But
But either
regardless, yeah, it's there.
It's happening. Either way, it's happening. And so now the expectation is even more so, because it's like, oh, well, if they can do this, like, why can't you do this?
And it's 100%. That's why we have that's Courtney's whole job. It's a team effort. It's not all, but it is good to see if a band is approaching us, or if it's the very early stages, to see that they're already doing something is
or
very
if we
green
talk
flag.
to you and you're kind of like, I just don't know how to approach it, but I'm willing to put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
That's so much better. Like, if I go and look at a band that doesn't do the bare minimum of posting about your new song releases or about your upcoming shows, and like you have those things going on, you're just not doing that simple bare minimum of promoting your own music, not even you as people. It's like, and I think another thing, like how we were like, oh, you know, those videos looking into if like one of the band members is interesting, kind of like we were just talking about behind the music. Like, we've always as people been interested in like more than just the music. We're interested in the people, and like we've always had documentaries or like info about artists and stuff. So allowing you to be the person to put that information out there, kind of like from a personal point of view, is a little better and gives fans more. Fans want to be able to relate to you on more than just your lyrics.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, you don't have to like put on a show like to do it. Like, you can be authentic to who you are and like do it in a very organic way, and it doesn't need to be like, oh,
you could just film parts of your day.
Yeah.
Like,
or like, you know, there's very bare minimum things bands can be doing. Like, if you're going to go to the studio and record some footage there. Like, you're in the studio.
You all have a high definition camera in your pocket.
Like, that's something you're already doing. So you don't need to spend the extra time. You're already in the studio. Just put on your phone video for a little bit. Just things like that. But some bands really are just so resistant to it, and it's hard.
And it's funny because I get a little cranky about this topic. The reason being, like, when I was playing music, which was in the late 90s, early 2000s. So when I played out, my audience was whoever came to the show, which on most nights was not that many people. If I was outside of my hometown, it was going to be, we're going to play to 12 people tonight, and it's our opportunity to like sell these 12 people. Every day that any of these bands wake up, they have the opportunity to potentially be in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would have killed for that type of opportunity, like just that shot, you know, even if the odds were stacked against me and it was probably not even going to work in my favor. My audience was whoever showed up and at whatever VFW hall in whatever podunk town. Like, that was it. I didn't have the reach of like, oh, I can connect with somebody that's in like Idaho today, and they might even be a super fan. So I think part of it also is bands changing their own mindset around it, of looking at it more as an opportunity, less as a burden.
Yeah. I will say there's the opposite side where like the bands that look at it as a burden, and then the bands that look at it as, I'm going to go viral and I'm going to blow up and that's going to be it and I'm going to be amazing forever. Especially on TikTok, videos go viral all the time. It is not like back when it was just YouTube or something and a clip would go like viral. It's not like 5 years ago or longer. TikTok is a viral platform. So like, just because you hit that on one thing, that's great. That's awesome. We do look at that. Like, that's great for you. But like,
as someone who has personally gone viral on TikTok to some extent, I can attest to the fact that it doesn't keep momentum after the one video that you had that had 2 million views or however many million views. You have to, well, which I was going to say, we've also seen the end of the spectrum where someone has gone viral and they walk into a room and they're like, well, I have this, so give me $50,000. Like,
so I think it's, you know, having your ego like, you know, deflated a little in those situations.
The more
just make sure you're like, you know, don't get a big head just because you go viral. It's great. I say
we want
like,
you to go viral, but it's good that you go viral. But
I know, like, I explained it to Nick and Sean once because they don't like really understand the social media, and it's like I'll like follow a person randomly on TikTok to be like, oh, I'll go back and look at that video later, like to remind myself. I never do because, you know, the ADHD, I'm never going back to anything I ever save. But but I'm like, just because I followed someone, I never sit there and unfollow them at any point. Like, I mean, sometimes I'll do like unfollow sprees if I'm like.
I mean, I do unfollow sprees all the time,
but like, especially like when you're just like, TikTok's such like a quick app. Like, you are just nonstop, just swipe video. It's like follow and forget about them until the next time they pop up on my feed. So you could gain all those following, and then 3 videos from now, your likes, your interaction is not there because they don't care.
The longer we talk about this, the more it sounds like it's common sense to us, but it's really just kind of keeping how you present yourself and how you talk to people in check.
Be yourself online. Like, as a band, be yourself and who you want to be and create that brand, but also be aware that like it doesn't have to be your entire band's personality.
Yeah.
So many fine lines, honestly.
Yeah, there are. One thing that I want to go back
to. Being in a band sounds hard, so maybe don't.
It's not like, that's what I say to that. Every band that I've worked with, I always, at some point during our calls, I always say, listen, this is not for the faint of heart. This is a labor of love. This is going to cause all sorts of issues for you, frankly.
And that's whether you work with us or not. That has
nothing to do with
artist and pursuing
that's
it as a
being
career.
A musician.
Yeah, or really any sort of artist, visual artist, painter, classical musician, playing in a symphony, whatever. It is not for the faint of heart. You have to love this for it to work. I have never met someone that's like mildly interested in it and it's worked out for them. It's just not how it works. So you've got to be, and this is like, that's one of my favorite things that Sean never said to me is, I was asking him about, their early days as a band. And I was like, how did you know that you guys were all in? And he said to me, he goes, we didn't allow ourselves to have a plan B. There was no plan B. This was it. Like, there was no way. And to have 5 or 6 people all on that same page, A, is rare. But B, to be also all committed to that as like, yep, this is plan A. There is no plan B. So like, we can't fail because it's not an option.
Which is a great, inspiring mindset to have. But on the other hand, we understand that the world is ending. And you probably need to make money and have a job. So, it's another fine line.
I think another thing that brings up is if you're having a band all on the same page, if you're looking for a label or like doing all these things, make sure you're in a band where all your bandmates are on the same page and are trying to do this, because like there are times where, and like things happen, life happens, so that's we're not saying like you can never change your bandmates, but so it's like things happen. But if you are in a band and you're super passionate and the other person's like, this is my side gig for life, just assess that, because it will become an issue.
That's hard to overcome.
Yeah.
That's hard to, at least in terms of, you can do it, and you can do it at a level where you can have some success and play. And maybe that's what it is for you. Maybe you don't really care about making it a career. You care about it taking you through the next 5 years of your life. And then you want to get married and, have kids or do whatever. That's fine. But if your goal is like, I want to do this full time and have this be my primary source of income. Yeah. Unless you're a singer songwriter solo, or you're, someone that, you're a duo or something like that, you need a lot of people on board, all on the same page. And that's the part I think that for most bands ends up making them implode. It's really hard to find that many people who are like, yep, I'm going to give up everything I've got. I'm going to leave my house. I'm going to leave my dog. I'm going to go live in a van on like $4 a day and eat McDonald's all the time. And, you know, like you have to, it's not fun. Like I'll be honest. And that's one thing I am really proud of is like, I think a lot of the people at the label have done it to some level, have like, I know what it's like to play to 4 people. I know what it's like to not have a place to stay. I know what it's like to have your van break down in the middle of Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and you get stuck at a hotel for 2 or 3 days while you're trying to get your van fixed, and how many thousands of dollars that costs and how many shows you miss. And I know all of that. And so I intimately identify with all of the things that they're working on to try and make it happen, because I've been in those positions, and I know Sean has, obviously, and I think a lot of us have had experience going out on the road and doing things, and so there's a personal connection there of understanding what it takes, and the dedication and how hard it is. Yeah, I feel like I'm not selling being in a band really. I feel like I'm basically telling everyone to give up and just go get a regular job.
One thing that I thought of as you're sitting there talking about like, oh, playing to 12 people, playing to 4 people, I think that's also important to keep in mind when you're out there performing. Put on your best show, no matter how many people are in the audience,
because you don't know who's going to be there.
Who's in there, and I've gone and checked out some bands we've talked to where there was like only a handful of people, and they brought it. And I came back to the meeting, and I was like, every one of those 12 people were standing up and dancing and having a good time, and like, but then if you're not doing that, and someone's in the audience, or we go check you out, or like, there's been bands I go and see, and then I'll go talk to them after, and they don't know like we're there. I'm just like, be like, that was a great show, like. So always.
So you never know what's going to get put on social media too. Like you never know, like if that small 4-person show is going to end up on TikTok, and then suddenly
goes into how you treat people in the community at shows, other bands, because if you know,
we all talk,
research as much as we can. You know, if a band comes up and I see someone I know is following them, or we have mutual friends or something, we're like, hey, what do you think of this person? Are they chill? Would they want to talk? Et cetera, et cetera.
I can actually tell you a really funny story about something like this. So I was probably 19 or 20, and we were actually, so I was in a band in New York, and we were actually playing in North Carolina. We were playing in Chapel Hill, and played with some bands, and there was this guy there who was, I just turned 21 because I was able to buy beer. So I was hanging out, and this guy was hanging outside the club, and he was only 20 and he couldn't buy beer. And he's like, hey man, can I buy some beer off of you? And I was like, no, you cannot buy beer from me, but you can come with me and drink beer with me. Like, you know, like just come and hang out. So this guy comes over and hangs out, and we drink beers and whatever. We start playing music together. And then as they went on, we played more and more music together. And then whenever they would come through, we would play music. Well, now that guy is now like a songwriter for Blake Shelton and Simple Plan and like all these bands. And he's someone now that I can just be like, hey, what do you think of this? And send him some music just to get his thoughts on it, as someone who's like super pro, working on huge stuff all the time. And like, that was just a chance meeting outside of a venue. Didn't know who he was. And like 20 years later, we're still friendly with each other and send emails back and forth. And it all started just from like, yeah, I have beer. Like, let's go have a beer together. Just like that, wanting to hang out with people.
That was a classic, like, and that little girl grew up to be.
It's crazy though. It is. I've been like really fortunate that I've had a lot of people in my life that have gone on to be incredibly successful. And I don't know what what it is about myself.
Like a little
where
good luck Chuck.
I've attracted people that have gone on to be, unfortunately, it hasn't trickled down to me, but I've attracted a lot of really successful people. And I think part of it is like, if you're the type of person that's open and excited about other people having success, you'll kind of attract people that are successful in that way. And again, it may not translate to you or whatever, but I've had like just numerous friends that have gone on to do really cool things in their industry. And it may be music related, it may not be, that have done super well for themselves. And people are always like, how do you know like that person? And I was like, oh, I went to middle school with them. And it's just random. But that's like, I get so excited about seeing other people do really great things. And I'm so excited for them. And it's legitimate. I'm not bullshitting at all. I'm really super excited when I know someone who does something great, because that's it's so satisfying to watch people reach their potential and hit their goals and like do the things that they're really passionate about. And I just get I get super excited about that.
Which is why
I'm like the most level person. I'm like barely have a pulse, but here I am. I'm like, yes, I'm so excited.
Which is why Kevin is the VP of A&R, because that's exactly what an A&R person should be like. It's like, yes, I want you to do well. This is so cool.
Do. I want everyone to do so well, and like whatever it is. And if it's like I just want to be a dad. I get super excited for people when they're like achieving that all the way. Like they're super into being a dad and they love it and they're in it. So whatever it is, like doing music, doing stuff in like the New York, I want to do the New York Times crossword puzzle, like reaching that goal, whatever random stuff. I get super excited for other people.
I think that's an important note too. It's like, if you've ever been a band we've talked to, or like, and it hasn't worked out for whatever reason, like we still like are fans of a lot of the bands like that we don't end up working with, and we still talk about them. And like, so some of them obviously aren't great experiences, but a lot of them like we're like excited, like, and we'll go to your shows and still like show up. So it's like, just because it doesn't work out with one label or with us, or, you're still figuring it out, it doesn't mean, don't get discouraged by it, I guess. Like, if that's really what you want to do, like, for whatever reason.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of, and I think all of us are victims, or we're guilty of this. I know I am too, but there's a lot of compare and contrast, and like, where is someone in their career versus where am I in my career, and how is this person getting these opportunities versus someone else, and especially in music. And I think it's gotten us, in particular, it's gotten really bad because everyone's metrics are now surface level that everyone can see. And so you see a lot of bands being like, well, we were like ahead of this band in our growth, and now they've kind of like, jumped ahead of us. And I think it's really important to try to not get into that, because your path is going to be different, is going to be yours, whether or not some bands get lucky, like the song happens at the right time with the right situation and they can take off. And some bands, it just doesn't happen for them. Some bands, it happens like 3 years later than you think it's going to. There's just no way to tell. You have to be like on your own track. And I think that's really important, to focus on your stuff. Stop worrying about what X band is doing over here. They have their own path that they're on. But I think that's really hard. It's really hard not to look and compare and contrast, because I'm sure we do it as a label where we're comparing and contrasting against other labels that do similar stuff, and we talk about them and like this, that, and the other thing. And, but it's not necessarily beneficial to us in any way. They're on their own trajectory. They have whatever advantages or disadvantages that they have, and we have ours. And it's so hard though not to get caught up in that mentality of comparing all the time. But it never gets you anywhere, I feel like, unless it motivates you to do something to improve your situation.
Unless you're fueled by spite.
I was like, mine just puts me in a depression, but sure.
Right, if you can take it and like turn it into motivation, even if with spite or without, but just like be like, oh, I want to reach that level, and then you are then motivated to try and do that, then it's beneficial. But if you're just like, I don't like them, and I don't like them, and they make me mad, then like, okay, that you're not changing anything about your situation. I mean, it's really hard though.
So before we move on to, I think it would be a good time to do Song of the Week, but before that,
what's the Song of the Week?
So we all, at the end of the episode, we all do our Song of the Week. But before we do that, do you have any red or green flags off the dome? Things that you don't want to see from bands
that we didn't mention.
Let's do red. I want the red flags. Tell me what not to do.
Red flags are easy. There's the very easy, obvious ones, which is, you are you are racist. You're a Nazi. You are
no Nazis. That's good. That's good.
You know, homophobic. You are. You get the gist. You're fitting in there. That's going to be a no-go zone. I'm not interested in working with people like that. And
neither is anybody else on the label. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, that's just not a place to start.
I'm glad that we're on the same page, but not that I thought we weren't, but like just to put it out there.
Yes, yeah, that's the first. Yeah. That's the first one. So let's say you've passed that test, which hopefully you have.
The bar is in hell.
Yeah. Exactly. The next red flag is typically like, again, it's about like, are you doing the easy things or are you not? So do you have social profiles even if you're not active? Do you have your music actually up and available and easy to find? Do you have pictures of yourself on your Spotify profile? Do you have a bio on Spotify, even if it's like not the greatest, but you have something there? Do you like in the pictures of the band, like does it have 3 people in the first picture and then like 5 in the next? And so now I don't know how many people are in your band and like who's even in this band. Like, so do you have some consistency there? Do you have, music that's obviously readily available for people to buy, download, etc.? That would be like the next tier, I would say, of kind of red flags. If you can't even do those things, then you're really not ready for. And honestly, a label wouldn't probably be that helpful because you haven't even gotten to that base level where you would want that extra platform.
Yeah.
And then I think from there, it's like, how active are you? And that means, are you playing out? If you're not playing out, do you at least have plans to play out? Do you have this in your mind? Are you even posting on social media? Are you doing some of these things? And then I think the last one, and this one it's not even like the next level because this almost works across the whole thing, but is your reputation as a person positive? Like, can you, because this is an industry where relationships are really important. If you have a hard time, there's plenty of examples of assholes that have done really well in this industry. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but the road is significantly easier if you are a likable, nice person. That doesn't mean, and whenever people say likable and nice, I think they think like, oh, it's a pushover. It's not what I'm saying.
I was going to say, I am not very nice or likable.
Yes, you are. You totally are. No, you totally are.
No, but continue.
If there's some, like, can you go into a situation and have a conversation with someone and not have it turn into a fight?
Fair.
Just a regular conversation with someone you make.
Like,
most of the time,
I can try.
It doesn't have to be 100%. It's got to be a pretty good percentage. Like, that is really important because these working relationships are close. They should be. And if the word gets out, this again goes back to the like small community. The word gets out that it kind of sucks to work with this person, or this person's really difficult. even if your band's really awesome, I just may not be interested.
And
I
that
may
kind
not
of
mentally have the bandwidth for that.
also goes back to the first round of red flags. Don't go around assaulting anybody. Don't if anyone has any story like that about you, you are
Yes.
kicked out the door.
That's out.
No.
Yeah. You have to be a person of like decent character, and we can all agree on some of the very base levels of what that means. Which means you're not harming another person. Essentially, is the big thing for me.
Like I said last episode, it's very easy to just not be a dick. Okay. Very easy.
Yes.
Right.
On that note, are we ready for Song of the Week?
Yes. Well, everybody knows what my Song of the Week is. Well, Amanda and you do. Bring Me the Horizon.
I'm going to guess that it's...
Oh, were you gonna?
I was going to say it's going to be Bring Me the Horizon.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it's TLC.
I do sometimes wear my shirts to relate to what we're talking about, but, not this week. I think I wore my Bring Me the Horizon shirt when we talked about favorites. So, but yeah, their new single "Lost" is my choice. Amanda,
that's a good choice.
Yeah, mine is Smith by Frontside, because this week my Spotify algorithm was like, "Hey, remember this song?" And I said, "Hey, remember this whole record is fucking great." So I've been listening to a lot of Frontside lately.
Love when Spotify does that.
Also, you know what? Side note that we didn't mention on our things about, because we mentioned like all bands doing the same festivals. Frontside will be doing a festival with the Outer Banks for Lovers festival this summer. So, which is so cool. So cool that they got, And
I'm going to go to that.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
I would love to go to that. When is it?
I'm going to go. It's towards the end of July, I think.
If I'm not on
July 29th.
If I'm not on tour, I will totally go.
Near my birthday. Let's go.
Yeah, so info on that is on the Revival and Frontside socials. So, all right, Goose, what's your Song of the Week?
All right, so my song this week is by Better Lovers, and the song is 30 Under 13. And it is 3 people from Every Time I Die, 1 member from Dillinger Escape Plan, and 1 other guy who's like a record producer and plays in other metal bands.
So this isn't some small time indie band or anything. But
no, this is like a new all-star-y band. And so if you're into like that heavier type of stuff, it's pretty awesome. I'm a big fan.
And that's their only song out right now, right?
Only song out as of this moment.
Dope.
All right, bring us home, E.
I'm so kind of stuck on what I want mine to be.
Give us 2.
Yeah, let's go 2.
Okay, so Growing Sideways by Noah Kahn, which is also Mental Health Awareness Month, so it has to do with that. So very in line. And then also kind of in that genre, Hosier put out a new song for the first time in a long time. It's called Eat Your Young. It is very good. Yeah.
I have listened to that song numerous times recently. It's very good. Yeah.
2 good choices.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Nice. Well, thank you for joining us, Kevin.
Thank you.
And,
thanks for having me. It's fun.
Yeah,
we will definitely have you back.
For sure.
For
sure.
I love it.
If anybody has any other A&R questions or things that they'd like, drop them in our comments and we'll see what the, expert Goose has to say about them for you.
And also,
do what I can.
If you are in a band and you've listened to us go on about how we approach A&R and you think you fit, we do have a submission form on our website if you would like to do that.
So drop us all your good music. We enjoy listening to it, and we won't be too harsh. Amanda's like, maybe.
We'll see. I got a lot of opinions, all right?
No, we love just like finding new bands and new music. So drop us your stuff, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the You, Me, and the Scene podcast. New episodes are released every other Monday.